Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 36 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 71, Raising the Signal Flare. Within the depths of Sector 7's Japanese headquarters beneath Tokuyama Dam, a ground bridge portal opened, allowing several Autobots entry. Accompanying Optimus Prime on this important visit were Jetfire, Red Alert, Bulkhead and Springer, the latter two acting as security for the big bot should things go south. And as for what things they were there to do, they were about to attempt something that was fairly rare in these late days of war. Enemy negotiations. For indeed, the Viacon miners they had apprehended had finally awakened from stasis, fully repaired thanks to Red Alert's efforts, and they were very keen on speaking to the Prime. Currently, they were captives, but Optimus was holding out hope that, with the right words, he could coerce them to abandon their Decepticon ways and join the Autobots. Still, as most of the bots transformed into robot mode upon rolling in, there were some who weren't exactly fully on board with the idea. I don't get it, Prime. Springer shrugged. A con's a con, no matter how ya slice it. Even if they're minors, they're still Viacons. Precisely, Springer. Optimus affirmed, much to the Triple Changer's surprise. They are Viacons. Decepticon troopers who were cold constructed for the sole purpose of Megatron having expendable forces that he may send out onto the battlefield or having them mine Energon. However, while they do not differ in appearance, they still have sparks, making them unique in personality. And thus, they are capable of emotion. All of this only served to confuse Springer more. I'm still not really picking up what you're etting down, Prime. He means to say that, while some Viacons may believe in the Decepticon cause, most are loyal to Megatron only because they fear him. Red Alert clarified, something that we can alleviate by bringing them over to our side, should they be willing to listen. Yeah, and pretty sure most of these Viacons are just minors anyway. Bulkhead added, giving his fellow wrecker a pat on the shoulder. Chances are, most of these worker bots may jump at the chance to get out under old Buckethead's thumb. That managed to get the gears turning in Springer's head. Ah, I see, and you think they'll start working for us? Optimus raised a hand. Whether they wish to offer us their services in mining Energon is up to them. My only goal today is to offer them freedom from Megatron's oppression, and nothing more. Jetfire crossed his arms, placing a thoughtful hand on his chin. Still, it would be pretty poetic if those Viacons did want to help. Sure, not many would be useful on the battlefield, but I can only imagine how Megs would react. Let's focus on speaking to them first before imagining anything. Red emphasized as the bots continued their way into the base. Before long, they were met with Agents Fowler, Fairborn and Burns, the latter actually up on his feet. Ah, Prime. Fowler greeted first. Good to see you bots got the message when I called earlier. I'm sure I don't have to tell you just how crucial this whole situation is. No need at all, Agent Fowler. Optimus assured before setting his attention onto Jacob Burns. And Agent Burns, I see you are standing once again. It is good to see you healed. Jacob saluted up to the Autobot leader. Prime, thank you for the kind words. It's definitely good to be walking again, but then, his sights went straight to Jetfire, nudging his chin up to the big, white and red robot. But so this is the new guy that Marissa's been telling me about. Jetfire, right. He extended a fist up to the bot. Agent Jacob Burns. It's a pleasure. Hey, right back at ya, soldier. Jetfire slowly lowered his fist, bumping it against Burns. And Agent Fairborn, good to see you again, too. Likewise. Marissa nodded. So, shall we get started? Our guests have been waiting for some time now. Optimus nodded to her and a massive door opened up into an adjacent room, with equally large prison cells on the other side. The group all walked in, though Bulkhead, Springer and Jetfire couldn't help but notice that the prison cells were pretty much perfectly sized for a Cybertronian. So, how long have you had these cells exactly? The former asked. Long before you got here, Bulkhead. Burns replied. Our predecessors knew just how big you bots were, so they had these built in case more Cybertronians decided to pay a visit. Of course, this was before we knew which side you Autobots were on, so, yeah. Do not feel bad about it, Agent Burns. Optimus dismissed. Given your ancestors' first experience with our kind, it is understandable that this measure was taken. And now, the Prime trailed off as they approached the cells they were looking for, the only 3 that had their energy force fields activated to keep its prisoners inside. It has been put to use. The bots and humans all peered inside the first one, seeing 8 Viacons all gathered in various positions. Some were standing, a few were sitting, though most of them were leaning against the walls of the cell. These Viacons, for the most part, all had the generic wheeled body type, though their heads were what set them apart from the usual foot soldiers. Rather than the sharp, angled, silver faces, their appearance resembled more of a welding mask with 2 horizontal eye slits for visors. They were made to be more resilient for work, after all. One of the Viacons perked its head up the moment Prime approached the cell, taking a step back as he gasped, "Ah! Oh Optimus Prime!" It was then that the other cons set their attention on the bots as well, muttering amongst themselves worriedly. Springer couldn't help but smirk, nudging Optimus' arm. "Whoa, seems Megatron ain't the only one they're freaked out by." Optimus hummed at that, but still made a bid to appeal to the cons all the same. "Greetings. My apologies if you have been frightened by our appearance. We are not here to cause you any harm, though." "Why you're not?" the Viacon in front asked. "Nope, quite the opposite, actually." Jetfire gave a thumbs up. "We're just here to check up on ya, see how you're doing now that you're all repaired." He nudged Red Alert with his fist. "Ol' Red here made sure you guys were in tip-top shape, after all." The Viacons all looked to one another before bowing their heads to the medic in gratitude. Thank you. For repairing us, that is," the one in front said. Another one off to the side piped in as well. "Starscream probably would have just left us for scrap, honestly." I wouldn't doubt it." Red Alert nodded. "Especially if it meant saving his own hide." But just then, another voice shouted from the next cell over. "Don't believe them so easily." Slamming their clawed hands against the energy field keeping them in, one sole Viacon glared at the Autobots, catching the others of his kind off guard. This one Viacon, however, was actually not a minor type. Rather, this one bore the sharper, silver head of the combat-type Viacon. "Starscream may have left us for scrap, but think of what he'll do to us if these bots make us spill Decepticon secrets. He'll have our heads." The other Viacons all gasped in F.A.R., which Optimus took note of. "That one is using intimidation to keep the others in line. Perhaps I should speak to him next." Prime stepped in front of the cell, addressing the con. "I see. Then I take it you are the leader of this mining crew." The Viacon simply scoffed and shook his head. "Faye, not me. I was only assigned to guard the mining crew on that mission. Shows how good that went, huh? Beaten by a Edding, human who's as thin as sheet metal. Probably even thinner, honestly." Bulkhead commented, earning him an elbow to the midsection from Red Alert. Hey, I'm just saying. Do you have a designation, soldier?" Optimus continued, ignoring the spat behind him. The Viacon shook his head. "Nope, none of us are given proper names. We're manufactured in mass numbers so Megatron can send us into the slaughter, after all." "You seem quite bitter about that, which is understandable." Another scoff came from the nameless con. "PFF'd, wouldn't you be if your existence didn't matter in the grand scheme of things? Just another body to be thrown at the enemy." Optimus extended a hand. "And that is why Autobots do not do such a thing. We treat all of our forces with respect." The Viacon simply huffed, crossing his arms as he turned away. "Tell me, then, if you are not the leader of this crew, then I take it he is." He craned his head toward the final cell to his right, containing the final Viacon. "Yep, that's him. The big guy hasn't said a word since he awoke from stasis, though. Good luck trying to interrogate him." Red Alert hummed as he approached the third cell, peering through its energy field to see the aforementioned bot still laying on the lift. He had a feeling that was the case as he was repairing the sole unique Viacon amongst the bunch, but he didn't want to assume. As the other Autobots approached, they themselves were able to take in the Viacon's details. He was indeed much heavier built than the other Viacons, and fair bit larger, equal in height to Springer. Like the others, though, he shared the purple and black color scheme, though he had hints of dark navy and even some red all throughout. In terms of the finer details, though, his helmet was very angular, with a pair of squared-off chevrons sticking out the side and what seemed to be a headlamp built into the forehead crest, along with a pair of air intake on either side of the head. His features were covered with a red visor and silver faceplate as well. Down on his legs, he had a pair of large tires on the back of each thigh, and on the back of his calves were a set of treads, indicating that his vehicle form was equally heavy-duty. The most noticeable detail about this bot, though, were his arms. The left one was fairly normal with a smooth, block-shaped shoulder pad, the Decepticon symbol emblazoned near his wrist. But his right arm might as well have not been an arm at all. Instead, it was an entire cannon, his massive shoulder no doubt housing all of the technical workings, while down past his elbow was the four-pronged barrel of the weapon itself. Interestingly, though, it wasn't just a straight muzzle, because at the end was a large, red radar dish of sorts, which seemed to match the red riot shield he kept on his left arm. Overall, he was a rather unique bot, to the point that the Autobots questioned something. "You sure this guy's a Viacon?" Springer questioned. "I don't think I've seen any like him before. He must be some sorta expert mining type or etting G." Bulkhead deduced. "Maybe Megs made these ones to head up his mining ops." Doubtful. Red Alert shook his head. "Otherwise, we would have encountered more in the past. I'm not a Viacon." The sound of a deep voice caught the Autobots off guard, their attention snapping right back to the Khan, who kept staring up at the ceiling. "At least, not by choice," he said, his head shifting slightly before moving back to the slab, seemingly lethargic. Optimus considered this before glancing toward Red Alert. "He is disarmed, correct?" The medic nodded. "Yes, all weapons disabled. I didn't want to remove his arm, so I simply disconnected a few key wires. I would like to speak with him directly, then," Optimus requested, peering down to Fowler. "Agent Fowler, please open his cell." The Sector 7 agent was surprised at first, but seeing the Autobot leader's serious gaze, he shrugged and complied. "Well, okay. But if he gets rough, I'm adding the others in to help out." He nodded to Burns, who went over and used his handprint to deactivate the energy field briefly so Prime could walk in. "Plus, I'm coming with. I wanna hear more from our guest." "I'm going in, too," Bulkhead assured as he stepped next to Optimus, his optics shifting up to his leader seriously. "We don't know what this Khan's capable of. He could be adding on an act for all we know." "Very well, I will allow it," Optimus permitted before nodding to the others. "The rest of you, try appealing to the other Viacons. Came here for that reason, after all." With the force field down, Prime, Bulkhead and Fowler walked in before it immediately went back up, locking them in with the unmoving Decepticon. Optimus extended his hand, starting first. "So, you say you are not a Viacon by choice. What do you mean by that?" The Khan rotated his head, his red visor locking with Prime's blue optics. "Pretty sure that should be straightforward. I was drafted into the Decepticon ranks." "Drafted, not constructed, like the others." With a nod, the Viacon confirmed it. "Exactly. Do you have a name, then?" There was a moment of hesitation from the Khan, but only for a few seconds. "My name is Signal Flare," he answered. "Long ago, about midway through the war for Cybertron, my home city was ransacked by the Khans, and that's when they discovered me." The Autobots and Fowler were giving Signal Flare their undivided attention at this point. "You see, my brother, Offshoot, and I have a unique ability. We can sense energon deposits." This managed to take Prime and Bulkhead aback. In most cases, specialized equipment was all but necessary to detect energon deposits. To hear that bot was capable of doing such a thing on their own was unprecedented. "You're kidding me," Bulkhead uttered. "Not at all." Signal Flare shook his head. "In fact, there's a small deposit directly under our feet." It was Fowler's turn to voice his disbelief. What? You've gotta be yanking my chain." He folded his arms across his chest, furrowing his brow to the Khan. "This place was built over 100 years ago. If there were any energon here, our predecessors would have found it." Signal Flare received skeptical looks from the bots as well, to which he finally sat up. "Don't believe me, huh? Wanna see for yours? WHRRTZCHTZCH*. He didn't move an inch more as Bulkhead brought out his arm cannon, aiming it right for his head. "Whoa, not trying anything, honest." Bulkhead, stand down, Optimus ordered. Yeah, Bulk, let the guy speak. The silence was long and permeable after the bots heard that. The voice, seemingly coming from out of nowhere, was actually quite easy to locate. Everyone, including Bulkhead himself, set their sights down toward his chest. And, as if taking the silence as a hint, the voice squeaked out a tiny, oops, when she realized her error. Bulkhead opened his chest panel and, sure enough, there sat a certain acid user in his storage unit. Ah, hee, hi. She waved meekly. Mina. Bulkhead reached in and plucked the shrieking pink girl out with his fingers, holding her up by the scruff of her school jacket as he furrowed his metal brows in disapproval. For the love of Primus, that's twice now that you've done this. I thought I told you to stay at base. With a huff and a pout, Mina crossed her arms over her chest in defiance. And I thought I told you that I didn't want to miss out on whatever you were doing. You should be studying for finals. Mina just rolled her eyes. I've got the entire month to do that. Her smile returned tenfold. Right now, I want to see what you guys are up to. Optimus wasn't too impressed, though he took a softer tone with her. Mina, this matter is of substantial importance to the Autobots' cause. I understand your fascination with what is happening, but I must ask that you. By the Maker, it's you. The bots, Fowler, and even Mina were surprised when Signal Flare pointed a finger at her with an astounded tone. The one the others whisper in fear about in the corridors of the dark side. Shifting her eyes left and right, the confused girl pointed at herself. Ya mean me? Yes, you're who they call, the, acid spitter. The moment Signal Flare said that, Mina's eyes widened in realization, flashing back only a couple months ago when she'd first encountered the Transformers, and remembering how she was essentially the first human to kill a Viacon. Oh dang, that's right. Mina put on a sheepish smile and rubbed the back of her neck. Would it help if I said I didn't know better at the time? Doubtful. The Khan replied. If my men saw you, they'd probably cower in fear just as bad as they would around Megatron. How am I being compared to the leader of the Decepticons? Despite the situation, Bulkhead couldn't help but chuckle at the exchange. Hey, look on the bright side, Mina, you've taken your next big step in becoming a wrecker. You're adding cons to be afraid of your presence alone. Just then, Fowler coughed into his hand, wanting to return to the prior subject. Ahem, could we maybe go back to what our guest was saying about the energon under the base? We can discuss Miss Ishido's punishment later. Optimus nodded back. Agreed. You were saying, Signal Flare. Well, before I was interrupted, he shot a brief glance to Bulkhead, the wrecker grumbling as he deactivated his arm cannon. I was about to show you this. He lowered his head and, to the bot's surprise, his own chest panel opened up, revealing a screen inside. Though more specifically, it was a radar display. He made sure to aim his larger arm down to the floor as well. The dock may have disabled my weapons, but my detection unit is something not so easily deactivated. The dish began emitting heavy pulses into the ground and, within seconds, the display on his chest lit up, revealing that there was indeed something big down below. Something that was distinctly shaped like a vein. Sweet Solus Prime. Bulkhead muttered. He's right, there's energon probably 5, maybe 6 meters below us. Fowler blinked as that information sunk in. You're telling me that, if they'd dug a bit deeper, Sector 7 would have discovered energon decades ago. Funny how things like that work out, isn't it? Signal Flare ceased his search and closed his chest back up, setting his hand upon his knee. And this ability of mine is exactly why Megatron drafted Offshoot and I into the Decepticon ranks, whether we wanted to or not. That said, my brother eventually came around to Megatron's way of thinking. And you, Optimus furthered. You can probably guess where my thoughts on the matter lie. Lowering his head to Optimus, Signal Flare aired his grievances. I'm tired of being used as a tool for the cons, especially Starscream. I'd rather be locked up in this cell for the rest of my existence, if I'm being frank. Prime had to admit, he was quite happy to hear that Signal Flare wasn't dedicated to the Decepticon cause, though he didn't need to go that far. Let us not jump the gun, to use a human turn of phrase. He extended a hand to the armored bot. Signal Flare, there is a place for you where your skills will truly be appreciated. Where you will not be treated like just another cog in the machine of the Decepticon ranks. I ask you, would you care to see what it is like to be an Autobot? After a brief second, Signal Flare let out a musing, join the Autobots, I dunno. I mean, wouldn't your troops hate me? Depends. Have ya killed any Autobots in the past? Bulkhead asked, which actually prompted Signal Flare to tap his chin while humming ponderously. Hey, it's a yes or no question. Why do ya gotta think about it? Kidding. Signal Flare raised his hand. No, I haven't killed any Autobots. In fact, despite all appearances, I'm not that big on the whole shooting thing. He clenched his fingers, making a fist. No, what I'm more interested in is crafting weapons out of pure energon. That made Prime and Bulkhead's optics widen. Can that actually be possible? The Autobot leader asked. You tell me. Removing his pure red shield, Signal Flare passed it off to the Prime. Made this one myself, along with the radar dish on my other arm to amplify my abilities. As Optimus peered into the material, he saw how it was, completely translucent, and seemed to glow internally. This is unprecedented, and quite impressive. And I can make more for you, if you'll allow me, sir. Bringing his hand up as he stood, Signal Flare saluted the Prime, which got Mina and Fowler to share a smile below. Well I'll be. The agent mused. Looks like we got ourselves a genuine face turn. Prime saluted back, but then extended his hand out to the Energon crafter. Signal Flare, we would be happy to welcome you to the Autobots. Thank you, sir. Now, I think it's time I showed my true colors. The moment Signal Flare's hand made contact with Prime's, a bright flash enveloped the Autobot, and his paint job completely changed. Now, rather than purple and black, he was now primarily cyan in the upper torso and lower legs, with his thighs and helmet becoming a deep turquoise color. His arms had also changed from black to a light tan, though his visor had remained red, along with his silver faceplate. As he pulled his hand back, the Decepticon symbol on his wrist warped in shape, becoming the Autobot brand. I'm glad to be on board and be of service. Woohoo! Mina cheered. The squad just gets bigger and badder. Ooh, do you think your Viacon buddies would consider switching sides, too? Signal Flare shifted his sights down, giving her a small chuckle. Hee, well, the possibility is there, especially if they see me like this. Though I think it's best if they don't see you right off the bat. Let me do some talking first, okay? Once that was agreed upon, Fowler gave Burns the signal to open the cell back up, which caught the attention of Jetfire, Springer and Red Alert. The trio of bots were left even more astonished when they saw that Bulkhead and Optimus weren't the only Autobots walking out. Whoa ho ho, I'll be fragged. Jetfire laughed. Ya actually pulled it off. It was then that Springer spotted Mina walking with them as well, and he crossed his arms while smirking down at her. And just where did you come from, little lady? Hitched a ride in Bulkhead before you guys left base. The young girl stated proudly. You're becoming more like a wrecker with each passing day. Springer approved with a thumbs up. Disobeying direct orders is part of the job. Mina gave a cheery grin back, but Optimus couldn't help but shake his head. I am beginning to understand why Magnus kept saying he could not deal with the wreckers so often. He cleared his vocal processor, bringing the main subject back. In any case, has any progress been made with the miners? A bit, yes. Red Alert confirmed. We've been speaking to them for a while, and most are interested. The medic set his red visor upon the lone Viacon trooper standing in his lonely cell, keeping his arms crossed and turned away. Keyword being, most. Well, let's see if I can change that. Signal Flare piped up as he walked into his subordinates' lines of sight, which made them all gasp at once. Signal Flare, sir. What happened to you? The Viacon trooper's attention was garnered as well, spinning around to slam his hands against the energy field. What are you doing? If Starscream finds out. Frag Starscream and everything he stands for. Signal Flare retorted, bringing his face close to the Viacons. In fact, frag the Decepticon cause altogether. I should have attempted to fight back a long time ago. In fact, a lot of us should have. He raised his arms to his mining team. Viacons, listen to me. It doesn't have to be this way. Under the Decepticons, you are nothing, but with the Autobots, you can be something. You can be someone, and your skills will be appreciated. Come join me, and we can experience what it's like to be free. Much to the surprise of most of the Autobots, Signal Flare's rousing speech did exactly what it needed to do. "I'm down. Frag yeah, me too. We're with ya on this one, boss." The Viacon miners spoke one after the other, raising their fists in solidarity with their superior. Of course, the only one to still be argumentative about it was the lone trooper. "Why, you're all insane. If Megatron gets a hold of any one of us, then we'll fight back." Another Viacon slammed his fists against the cell wall. "I'm tired of living in fear of that tyrant. It's time we stood up for ourselves." "Ha ha. That's the spirit." Jetfire cheered. "Burns, I think it's time we let these guys have a taste of freedom, don't ya think?" Burns complied without question, opening the cell and allowing the miners to walk out. Needless to say, the trooper wasn't all too impressed. "So that's it. You're gonna join them, just like that?" Signal Flare approached him once again. "We'd rather not keep living in fear and oppression anymore, soldier. If you wish to do the same, you're more than happy to join us. But first, something's gotta be addressed." He did an about-face back to his crew. "Men, we may be free, but there are still several others on board the dark side who wish for what we have. With any luck, we may free them one day, too, but until then, we'll have to be patient, and learn how to do things the earthly way." The crew eyed one IR in confusion at his words. What you mean by that, boss?" "What I mean is that while on Earth, we'll need to learn to work with the Autobots, human associates." Signal Flare gestured down toward Agents Fowler, Burns and Fairborn. "Of course, I'm referring to these ones, but also their younger allies as well. Including, well, you'll wanna brace yourselves for this one." The miners appeared confused, but were quickly enlightened when the Autobots stepped aside, revealing Mina Ishido to them all. "Hiya," she waved cheerily. The response was, as expected. "Ah." All at once, the Viacons screamed in terror and practically began climbing all over one another in a vain attempt to get away from the tiny, pink menace, the fear in their voices undeniable. "It's her. It's her. The acid spitter. Keep her away, please. Watch out for her mandibles. They split apart when she's about to strike." "Yeah." That last one in particular made Mina do a double take. "Wah. Mandibles. I don't got mandibles." She reached up and moved her horns a little. "And if you're talking about these, I've got news for you, they don't do much of anything." But the Viacon trooper saw this as an opportunity. "She lies. We all saw the footage of what happened. She killed one of our own without remorse." The remorse came later, I swear," Mina asserted while waving her hands, trying to calm things down. "Enough." Signal Flare stomped his foot, which managed to do the trick. All of the Viacons stopped what they were doing, and promptly all fell over after they had stacked themselves too high on each other's shoulders. "By Primus, show some spinal sturdiness, will you?" Young Mina here means absolutely no harm. What she said is true, she felt incredibly regretful for what she did to that Viacon afterward. "Right." Mina nodded vehemently. "Why yes. At the time, I didn't even know you guys were sentient, I thought you were drones or something, but then Optimus told me otherwise and, I'm not going to lie, I cried myself to sleep that night." The Viacons all looked to one another and then back down at her. "What does it mean to cry?" one asked. "Oh, right, you probably don't know what that is." Mina scratched her chin. "Well, crying is something that we humans do when we feel sad. Or when we're overcome by any strong emotion, really." She pointed up to her golden black eyes. "It's when we shed water from our eyes, we call those tears, by the way. And before you ask, no, the water isn't acidic. It's more salty than anything. Salty water." Another Viacon scratched his head. "These lifeforms are truly fascinating, if utterly confusing," said yet another. Jetfire chuckled and gave a shrug. "Hee, don't worry, you'll get used to it, at least, I think." The second-in-command directed his attention toward the lone trooper once again. "So, how about it? Don't wanna be left out, do ya? Anything's better than being stuck in there, right?" Springer added. With a low hum, the Soul Combat Viacon pondered on the idea, peering down to the Decepticon sigil on his chest. "I was never really given any sort of choice before now. But now that I have one," he reached his clawed hand up and swiped it across the sigil, leaving 2 clean slashes through it and across his chest. "I suppose a fresh start wouldn't be too bad." Hearing this, the other Viacons celebrated with an uproarious cheer, all while Agent Fairborn went to let him out. However, before she did, she was stopped by Red Alert. Wait. The medic raised his hand before drawing closer to the cell, locking visors with the Viacon. Just so you're aware, I will be keeping a close optic on you. These miners are one case, but you were constructed specifically for war and you have killed Autobots before. Until you prove your trustworthiness, you are to stay at Sector 7, and your weapons are to remain disabled. Understand? The trooper seemed taken aback by the declaration, that is, until Optimus affirmed it. Unfortunately, that is a necessary measure. Too often, we have had Viacon troopers claim to be switching sides, only to reveal it to be a sneak attack. He nodded down to Marissa, who opened the cell and allowed him to step through. I wish to see your word be genuine, though, and I have faith you can prove that. Prime extended his hand with a nod. Yeah, sure, I can handle a little probation. The Viacon said, all while mentally kicking himself. Gah, guess I should have figured these bots were smarter than they seemed. His gaze traveled down toward Mina warily. Just, please make sure the acid spitter keeps her hands to herself, please. The name's, Mina, jerkface. The pink girl retorted. How'd you feel if someone called you a mean name? That managed to get a light laugh out of the Viacon trooper. I've been called far worse than, jerkface, child. I don't think any derogatory name can vex me at this point. Mina pursed her lips at that, thinking over the trooper's words. Okay then, I'll just have to call you something mundane instead. What? I mean, you do need a name, after all. Mina reasoned. We can't just call you guys, Viacon numbers 1, 2, 3 and so on. She squinted up at the trooper whilst scratching her chin. I'm thinking, her eyes lit up and she snapped her fingers, pointing up at him. Steve. Again, what? Mina winked up to him. You heard me. From now on, your name is Steve. There was a lengthy silence after the girl's declaration, but surprisingly, most of the others didn't oppose to it. In fact, Signal Flare straight up approved. Ya know what? I kinda like it. What? The Viacon now known as Steve threw his hands into the air. How in the frag could you like a name like that? What does it even mean? Marissa raised a finger to interject. Well, actually, the name, Steven, is derived from. That question was rhetorical. Whoa, Steve, let's not fly off the handle. One of the miners implored. Much to his chagrin, Steve was unable to escape the new moniker. Oh, Primus, it's spreading. Just then, another miner made a further suggestion. Hey, if he gets a unique name, why don't we all get one? How would we tell each other apart, though? Came another one's question. Not to be that bot, but we all look the same. Thankfully, Mina had a solution for that as well. Oh, that's an easy one. Cybertronians can change their paint jobs on a whim, can't they? Well, why don't you guys just do that and then we can pick out your names? A murmur went through the crowd as they all agreed to the idea, which only got Mina more excited. This is gonna be so much fun. Okay, boys. Choose your new color schemes and report to me in 24 hours. I'll get your new designations ready by then, got it? She received a collective, yes, Mina, to her delight. All the while, the Autobots and Sector 7 agents couldn't help but stare on in surprise. Could anyone have seen this coming? Red Alert asked. Nope, not one bit. Bulkhead replied. And yet somehow, it's working. Signal Flare chuckled, craning his head up to Optimus Prime. I think things are gonna work out just fine with these bots. Though I think the term, Viacon, should be abandoned when it comes to us. Optimus nodded back down to his new ally. Agreed. Feel free to choose your team's new name, Signal Flare. I leave it in your capable servos. The next day at UA had been a fairly strenuous one for the students. For their hero course training had been nothing but rescue operations, and it had been rather taxing. First, they had learned the ins and outs of using an evac chute to evacuate from a crumbling building, where they had been the ones in need of evacuation, so they got to go down the slide. Mina was ecstatic about that one. Then, just when they thought they were done, All Might came in and took them in a large helicopter to do some rescue exercises on top of a snowy mountain and near the waterfront. Needless to say, their day had been a full one, and they found themselves now back in the classroom waiting for Aizawa to wrap things up. Good work today, the tired homeroom teacher droned. Moving right along, we'll be having Parents' Day next week. Well, that came out of nowhere. Hua, the entire classroom echoed before Jiro exclaimed, even the hero course has gotta do stuff like that. Yes, now make sure your parents or guardians see this. Aizawa pulled out a stack of handouts, separating them into 4 stacks before sending them down the aisles. And for homework, you'll be writing them letters of appreciation. There was a short burst of silence, before the class erupted into laughter. Ha ha ha, hang on, what are we? Little kids. Denki said as everyone agreed with him, only to be met with Aizawa's very serious glower. Have I ever been one to joke? During the class, you will each read your letters out loud to your parents. It was only then that it dawned on the students that Aizawa was, indeed, very serious about this. F for real. That's ridiculous. Toru exclaimed. Talk about embarrassing, Ojiro mumbled with a sheepish grin as more of his peers made their opinions vocal. However, as always, it was the class rep who went to calm everything down. Everyone, quiet down, Tenya exclaimed, swinging his arms robotically as he shot up out of his seat. Quiet, quiet. Suyu, who appeared much less tired today, placed a finger on her chin as she pointed out, you're louder than anyone else, Iida. Ribbit. Oh, my apologies, Asui. Tenya bowed before addressing his teacher. But, Mr. Aizawa, surely you understand why we're all so vexed. Parents' Day implies an ordinary class that our parents or guardians come to observe, so I can't understand why we would instead be reading letters of appreciation. He raised his hands straight into the air. Shouldn't they instead bear witness to an activity more befitting of the hero course? Perhaps running a rescue operation for them to see how far we have come. Aizawa merely hummed at the suggestion. I see where you may get that idea. But in reality, nothing would be better fit for the hero course than these letters. What do you mean, sir? As aspiring heroes, you're all bound to receive thanks and appreciation from those you save. Aizawa explained. Which is why it's essential to consider just what that entails. Well, not that you all becoming pros is necessarily set in stone. Tenya placed a hand upon his chin, pondering his teacher's words. Wait, so you mean to say that this exercise will confirm whether or not we have the correct frame of mind to be heroes who must remain modest, humble and always grateful? Just like that, he was convinced. How true. That makes perfect sense, sir. You don't take much convincing. Ochako laughed behind him, all while the rest of the class gave awkward chuckles. After that, most of the class was more accepting of the assignment, while others weren't as convinced. Aizawa's argument makes sense, I guess, in a world where people think backwards. Kyoka grumbled. This is gonna be the end of me. Keita thumped her head against her desk. My parents are out of the country, which means my brother gets to show up here. So I gotta write a letter of appreciation to him instead, I guess. Well, who knows, Keita. Momo piped up from behind. Perhaps you could somehow convince at least one of your parents to fly back to Japan for a little while. Keita perked her head up, glancing toward Momo over her shoulder. It'd be a long shot, but maybe. Aizawa continued on from there. Before recitations, though, we'll give them a brief tour of the campus and a practical demo. Shouldn't that be the main event or something? Denki blurted out. Later once class had gotten out, the entire team met out behind the school, gathering in the parking lot to discuss everything they'd just learned. Man, this sucks. Tetsu grumbled, scowling down at the handout in his grasp. Here I thought we'd be exempt from this usual sorta crap that normal schools go through. Yeah, me too. Setsuna rolled her eyes. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my parents and all, but I'd rather not die of embarrassment. The 1A students all nodded in agreement with their 1B cohorts, though the odd one out was, of course, Mei Hatsume. I dunno what you guys are so worried about. The mad inventor said as she placed her hands behind her head. I mean, I show my parents my schoolwork all the time, so really, this is nothing new. Mei, I think you're just incapable of feeling any sorta embarrassment. Mina deadpanned. Aren't you worried about them gushing over you in front of your classmates? PSH, my mom and dad are nothing like that. Mei scoffed. My dad's a gearhead and my mom's a computer technician. Bringing them to a support course class is probably gonna be a walk in the park for them. Well, lucky you. Denki exclaimed before burying his head in his hands. My mom's totally gonna humiliate me. Especially if I write this freaking letter. He waved the sheet of paper around in panic. Is there seriously no way out of this? Toward the back, Shoto shook his head. Nope, no choice but to write them. Iida raised his hands to his crowd of friends. Now, everyone, I realize that this can be seen as quite stressful. However, while I also had my doubts at first, I think it is a fantastic idea. Naturally, we feel grateful to our families for all they do, but rarely do we get a chance to express that in words. He tapped a finger to his chin thoughtfully. I wonder if there's a page limit. Too short, and I'm afraid I won't be able to fit all my feelings into the letter. That earned him several awkward stares and a few pained chuckles. You could just truncate your thoughts into, like, a couple pages, maybe. Kyoka suggested. Jiro, but that simply won't do. I do not intend to bestow a half-hearted letter to my parents. You really think you'll be writing that much, Iida? Izuku asked. I can't even imagine where to start. The one for all inheritors scratched the back of his head. I mean, I'm always leaving comments on heroes' websites, but an actual letter is a different story. That intrigued the engine user. Is that so? I find myself writing thank you cards every now and again. Jiro and several others had to do a double take. Wait, really? For what, man? When I help senior citizens across the street, for instance, they sometimes send me gifts in the mail. My parents raised me to always reply with a thank you card on such occasions. The way Tenya said that was so casual, yet Izuku couldn't help but be impressed. That's actually kind of amazing. You think so? It seems perfectly ordinary. Needless to say, the other members of the team were less impressed than their resident green-haired hero nerd. Can't say I've ever done that, honestly. Itsuka said with a deadpan stare. And not to say it's a bad thing. Abara insisted, the Vine user smiling to Iida. In fact, I think it's a rather gracious act for you to do, Iida. And it gives you great experience for a task such as writing a letter of appreciation. Hearing the praise being heaped upon Iida by the 1B girl, something flicked on in Denki's mind. He couldn't lie, he was feeling a little jealous, and it ignited a resolve in him he wasn't aware he had before. She likes gracious acts, huh? Alright, then I'll write one of the most gracious letters out there. Iida beamed at the kind words. Thank you, Shiozaki. Yes, a letter is the perfect way to truly make one's feelings known. Oh, wait, that reminds me. He thrust his hands straight into the air, much to everyone's surprise. How silly of me to forget. Reaching into his school bag, Tenya procured 4 slips of paper, which, upon closer inspection, were actually tickets to something. I received these theme park tickets from native Midoriya, Todoroki. He said that they were for us and one guest. The 2 boys' eyes widened as everyone immediately focused on them, as if they had just been told they had won the lotto. Whoa, seriously? Izuku exclaimed. Native. Shoto titled his head. Who's that? The hero who was on the scene when, you know what, happened back in Hosu. A quiet mumble of understanding went around at Izuku's clarification. They knew that they couldn't talk about what had actually happened back during the internships, even though they all knew that the 3 boys and Mirko had taken down Stain on their own. I wonder why he gave these to us, though. Probably just to thank you guys. Kyoka figured, giving a small smirk as she noted the number of tickets. Hey, wonder if he initially bought that 4th one for Mirko. Now that would be crazy to see. Izuku couldn't help but scratch his chin with a small blush. Haha, yeah, seeing her going around a theme park would be kinda strange. All the same, we ought to take advantage of his kindness, no? Tenya incentivized. The brunette nodded wholeheartedly. Yeah, you're right. Shoto merely gave a shrug, I guess so. However, these are only good through next week. The spectacled speedster explained further. Are the 2 of you free on Sunday? Sunday? Sorry, I can't make it. Izuku grimaced. Kyoka raised a brow at him. And what do you got going on, then? Within seconds, Izuku's frown was replaced with an excited smile, his eyes lighting up in the process. There's a hero exhibit at the Culture Hall. A can't-miss event covering everything from the Dawn of Heroes period to now. The stuff on display isn't usually available to the public, and everyone who attends gets a deluxe photo collection with detailed profiles of those early heroes. Izuku was practically brimming with excitement, which proved infectious to a few of his friends. "Wow, you're really dedicated to heroism, Deku." Ochako beamed. "Maybe a bit obsessed, if ya ask me." Tetsu mumbled to Setsuna, which earned him a smack upside the head from Itsuka. "Ow. Hey, what did I do? I'm really sorry, Iida." Izuku bowed, bringing his hands together apologetically. "And I can't do Sunday either." Shoto added. "Have to visit my mom, sorry." Tenya seemed rather dejected, but he understood. "I see, unfortunate, yet unavoidable. That said, I would hate for these tickets to go to waste." He was cut off when a flurry of hands suddenly shot up from his crowd of friends, many of whom were interested. "Well, I cannot invite all of you. Man, I wish I could go." Ochako rubbed her hands through her hair. "But I gotta get my shopping done that day." Itsuka crossed her arms with a heavy sigh. "Yeah, and I've got the midday shift at work." Momo nodded in agreement. "I will be busy that day as well. However, for the rest of you, I believe it would be best for you all to work that out back at headquarters rather than here." She craned her head toward Kyoka and Izuku. "As for the three of us, I believe it's time we get going. Our parents will be expecting us home soon, after all." Kyoka groaned at the reminder. It sucks to be grounded," which, by the way, she tilted her head back to Izuku. "You got a plan to actually attend this hero exhibit?" Oh. Izuku became downcast, suddenly reminded of the situation he was in. "And no, I guess I don't." Great, then I guess it's up to me to help ya out with that." Izuku's frown turned upside down once again. Really? Have I ever told you that you're the best, Kyoka?" That managed to get Kyoka's lips to curl up into her own grin. "Many times. Feel free to keep saying it." At that moment, several Autobots came pulling up to the curb, and that was Kyoka, Momo and Izuku's cue to head off. "Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hope y'all work out those tickets in a fair way. Bye, guys." Ochako waved as the others all went for an Autobot as well. Tenya and Todoroki all climbed into Strongarm, the cadets holoform smiling at them as they buckled up. "Afternoon, everyone," Stella Armstrong greeted. "You kids have an exciting day." The question made Ochako give out a small chuckle. Oh, you have no idea." As they drove along, the gravity user explained the situation to Strongarm, who listened intently. Parents' Day, huh? Sounds like you all have your hands full." Ochako nodded in agreement with a soft sigh. "Yeah, it's gonna be pretty hectic, I think." As she said that, though, she felt the need to ask her classmates, "So, do you guys know which of your family members are coming to Parents' Day?" "My mother," Tenya replied sincerely. "My father has his work, after all. Will either of your folks be attending, Uraraka?" I dunno." Ochako shrugged. "I'm gonna have to ask them beforehand. Usually only one of them can come, but they decide that amongst themselves." Tenya nodded at that. "I see. How about you, Todoroki?" Next to him in the backseat, Shoto merely shrugged again. "Me, probably no one." The answer took both of his peers aback, that is, until they remembered his circumstances. "Oh, yeah, your mom is in a hospital, isn't she?" Ochako said with a sympathetic gaze. "And your dad's probably way too busy with his hero work to come. I'm certain your parents would be delighted to see how far you've come, though." Tenya emphasized as well. "It's a shame. My apologies." "Don't worry about it. Nothing worth apologizing over," Shoto assured. "Though in the case of Endeavor, I'm glad that Bastard won't be there. Last thing I want is him showing up." Tenya and Ochako couldn't help but blink in surprise. "Be Bastard. You shouldn't call the man who raised you, Bastard." "Why not, Father, at least?" Shoto scoffed at that. "Even, Bastard, is too good for my pathetic excuse of a father. If not father, then perhaps, Papa. Or, Daddy." And that's when the threshold was crossed. Ochako could see Shoto's eyes dilate in disgusted shock, and she could see flickers of flames start jumping off the left side of his face. She quickly moved off her seat and got in between the two, raising her hands to try and quell things before they got started. "Okay, let's not go off the deep end, shall we? Remember, we're in an Autobot. Last thing we need is a car wreck. Strongarm glanced back to the boys. Exactly. Besides, we're almost at Shoto's stop. Take your seats, all of you. With the conflict having been doused, the boys settled back in their seats, with Ochako breathing a heavy sigh of relief. Too close for comfort. Once Shoto had been dropped off at the bus station near his home, the boy's feet took him, in the complete opposite direction once his friends were out of sight. He had grown accustomed to joining them after school at the Autobot base for the past week since he found out the secret, often finding himself in casual conversation with Optimus Prime. But today, he had some last-minute business to attend to, and he'd rather not let them be concerned about it. And so, there he was, stepping in front of the stark white building he was so accustomed to seeing since the sports festival ended, the front cast in the orange hue of the setting sun. Shoto had made sure to visit the hospital where his mother was institutionalized on his days off pretty much every week. And though visiting hours were nearly over today, the lobby was still full of patients waiting to check out. So, he took the opportunity to slink off to the elevator unnoticed and made for the upper levels. But as he got closer to his mother's floor, he felt his nerves starting to take hold for some reason. Not since he first visited her did he feel this nerve-wracked. What is going on? He wondered just as the elevator stopped and opened up. Once he stepped out, he was greeted by silence and the smell of antiseptic, which while pungent was at least better than the commotion downstairs. It even reminded him of his own recent hospital stay a little, and how it made him ponder of how long his mother had remained in such a sterile environment for so many years. Shoto. What a nice surprise. The half-cold, half-hot user was jarred from his thoughts when one of the nurses spoke up to him as he passed her station, catching him off guard. "Oh, hi," he said back while pondering, a surprise. He meant to ask her about it, but her station's phone rang, so he decided against it and kept walking. All the while, a heavy weight seemed to enter his pocket, the folded-up piece of paper for Parents' Day. It seemed to grow the heaviest as he made it to his mother's room, though he took a deep breath to steel his nerves before opening the door. "Hi, Mom." Inside, Rei Todoroki was sitting on her bed, staring out the window at the sunset. But as the door opened and she heard his greeting, her head swung right around to smile at him. "Shoto." Her eyes widened in happiness. Is there something wrong?" "Far from it, honey. Come, have a seat." Rei pulled a stool out from the desk across from her bed, beckoning Shoto to sit down. And from there, they simply sat in silence, looking at one another as the soft amber light shone through the window. It was kinda awkward, Shoto found. "Mom." Oh, sorry." Rei apologized. "It's fine, is there something on my face or?" "No, it's just, I haven't had the chance to see you on a school day in quite some time." Rei explained, getting a little choked up. "You're growing up." Seeing her eyes twinkle as tears welled up in her eyes, Shoto couldn't help but feel sheepish in the moment. "Now I know what the nurse meant by surprise." He cleared his throat a little, regaining some composure. "Sorry for showing up unannounced." Rei reached out, grasping her son's hand upon his knee. "Don't be silly. I'm always happy to see you." Slowly, Shoto folded his hand up, gently taking hers with a small smile of his own. His other hand, meanwhile, was still in his pocket, brushing against the handout, the reason he was there in the first place. Despite the fact that he knew full well that his mother couldn't attend. "Is it even worth telling her? Want anything to drink, sweetie?" Rei asked, once again knocking Shoto out of his own mind. Oh, sure." Shoto's throat felt suddenly very dry as he stood up, ready to head out the door to the nearest vending machine to grab a couple drinks. But Rei held a hand up, stopping him short. "No need to leave. I have some things in the fridge." The boy's sights went to the small, white box under the desk, much smaller than any home fridge. He opened the mini fridge and found quite a few soft drink bottles, along with a yogurt drink with a cartoon cow on the carton which was more meant for children. Rei knew he saw it and let out a small chuckle. Haha, you recognize that, Shoto. Your old favorite, the yogurt with Mrs. Cow. I saw that they were selling it, so. Shoto froze up, figuratively, of course. He could feel a vague memory in the back of his mind crop up at the mention of that brand of drink, though it had been so long that it nearly vanished. Rei could see his reaction, though her smile didn't lose its luster. I know, you're in high school now. She nodded. So I picked out a few other options as well. Take whichever you'd like. This one, Shoto said, grabbing the Mrs. Cow yogurt drink without hesitation. With how much trouble his mother went through to get it, he'd make damn sure he enjoyed every sip. And as he drank it, the taste became more familiar to him with every sip. It was strange, and oddly nostalgic. Once the two finished their drinks, though, the room fell into an awkward silence once more. It was almost like the years apart between mother and son had taken the form of this silence, though it wasn't entirely painful as it was also how they took the time to think on what to say to the other next. So, how's school? Ray started. Fine, and just like that, the paperweight in his pocket grew heavy again. It was the perfect opportunity to tell her, but he still couldn't do it. He could see the concern on his mother's face as he hesitated, but he managed to save himself quickly. We did rescue training in class today. Got to ride in a helicopter, even. A helicopter. Well, isn't that something? From there, the conversation became a bit more natural, though before long, something interrupted their conversation. Ding Shoto's eyes widened and his sights snapped down to his pants pocket, recognizing it as the messenger on his phone. Oh, sorry, 1 second. He reached down and flicked the device on, and saw that it was from his best friend. K-Saurus. Any advice on dealing with the lack of parents on Parents' Day? His smile widened and a soft chuckle passed his lips, which Ray immediately took notice of. What is it? She asked slyly. Realizing his grave error, Shoto quickly shoved his phone back in his pants. Nothing. Don't give me that, dear. Ray said knowingly. I know that smile. That's the smile of someone who just got a message from Miss Keita. That was the one thing that Shoto wished his mother had never picked up on. She had still yet to actually meet Keita, and yet whenever he got messages from her during his visits, she always noticed and the conversation would almost always lean into the topic of her. He was also pretty sure she knew he had a crush on the Soro parts user, so that never made things easy. Yeah, she's just asking a question about homework and she made it kinda silly. You know what I'm going to say next, right? That you want to meet her soon. Honey, I only repeat it ad nauseam because she sounds like such a sweetheart. Ray said, genuinely interested. I want to get to know the friend you've stuck by since middle school. Shoto scratched the back of his head as a light shade of pink came to his cheeks. I also have other friends, too. If anything, that only made Ray's face light up even more. That's fantastic to hear, Shoto. What are they like? But before the boy could properly answer his mother, a knock came at the door before it clicked open, revealing a young woman on the other side. She wasn't a nurse, however, the family resemblance between her and the two Todorokis in the room being all too clear. She was a lovely young woman in her mid-20s with white hair that had bits of red in it, mostly hanging down at shoulder length with a portion if it tied back. She also wore thick-rimmed black glasses over her dark eyes, which focused on her mother first. Mom, I've got your laundry and, oh. Shoto. Fuyumi. Shoto nodded to his sister. Ah, what a surprise. Fuyumi smiled as she set her mother's laundry on the dresser. You don't usually show up here on school days. What's going on? Shoto gave a simple shrug. Not much, really. Ray sent her daughter a grateful grin. Thanks as always for taking care of my laundry, honey. Ah, don't mention it, Mom. Once she had organized everything in the small dresser, Fuyumi strolled over to her family. So, any special reason you're here today, Shoto? The younger boy glanced off to the side. Again, not really. However, right as Shoto stood up to throw away his milk carton, the handout happened to slip out of his pocket and onto the floor, which he didn't notice until Fuyumi picked it up. Oh, what's this, then? Shoto's eyes widened as he went to reach for the paper, only for his sister to turn away. No, don't. But it was too late. Fuyumi unfolded it and immediately saw what it was about. Oh, a notice about Parents' Day. It's none of your business. Shoto asserted, though he knew that the damage was already done. Right, I get what's going on. Fuyumi deduced with a knowing smile, which was met by her brother's wrathful scowl. Thankfully, his mother's voice managed to calm him down, even if what she had to say pained him. Oh, Shoto, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't attend. Seeing his mother's downcast gaze, Shoto tried his best to clear things up. No, I know. Just wanted to pass on the notice. It's no big deal, really." He began beating himself internally over the mistake, wishing he'd never come. Not if she felt forced to apologize over it. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Oh," Shoto, Rei's eyes only grew sadder as she saw her son's defeated state. Hey, come on now." Fuyumi was starting to fret over the disappointed state she had put her brother and mother in. She had caused this mess, and, in that moment, she'd gotten an idea to clean it up. "Oh, I know. I'll attend Parents' Day." The declaration managed to get both of them to snap their heads to her. "What?" they echoed, though Shoto seemed more annoyed while his mother was elated. "That's crazy." The ice and fire wielder continued. "Don't you have your own school to worry about?" But Fuyumi waved off his worries and gave him a wink. "Nice of you to worry, but as a teacher, I can put in for half a day off since this is a family affair. Plus, I can record the whole thing." Shoto was aghast, to say the least. "This isn't like sports day with the little kids you teach." "Oh, don't want me to. Trust me, Shoto, there's plenty of camcorders in the room when my kids have Parents' Day." Before Shoto could tell his sister off for comparing a high schooler to her ankle biters, their mother spoke up to him. "Why not, then?" It was only then that Shoto noticed her previous delight had been overshadowed by a frown once again, and he immediately hated himself for doing that. Sure, he despised the plan, but breaking his mother's heart. "Not happening. I'd have to check with my school." "Please do." Rei smiled softly. "I would love to at least see what Parents' Day is like." Okay, Shoto complied. Eventually, it had gotten late and the two Todoroki siblings bid their mother farewell, heading to the elevator. "Your homeroom teacher is Aizawa, right?" Fuyumi asked. Yeah. Despite herself, Fuyumi couldn't help but poke and prod her baby brother a little more. "What's the matter, Mr. Grumpy Pants? You want Dad to attend instead?" That made Shoto glare at her even harder. "Don't you dare speak a word of this to him." Thought so." Fuyumi sighed at her bullheaded brother, though it didn't take long for that smile of hers to return. "Oh, fine. But you really hate the camcorder idea that much, huh? Would I be able to say anything that could convince you?" "Yeah, I hate it, but it's more than that." Shoto lifted his head to his sister irritably. "I knew all along that she couldn't go, so she never should have had to find out in the first place." Fuyumi winced, her hand going to her neck. That. But even despite the awkwardness, she eventually smiled to her brother again, and booped him on the nose. "What the hell? Listen, there's no parent out there who wouldn't be thrilled to learn their child actually thinks about them. Mom might feel terrible about not attending, but I know she was glad you came to tell her anyway." The young woman reached out, giving her brother's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Remember, it's not just your first Parents' Day notice. In a way, it's hers too." The wisdom in her words didn't go unnoticed by Shoto. "You ought to be a teacher or something," he replied dryly. "You don't say," Fuyumi said with equal sarcasm. She gave him a small bop on the head as they entered the elevator, all while Shoto tried to hide his embarrassment. But, just then, blip blip, Shoto's phone went off again, prompting him to check his messages. Sure enough, it was Keita again. "K-Saurus. Seriously, dude, my brother's trembling at the thought of going back to Aizawa's classroom. I need an out. SNRK. Unfortunately, that one stifle of a laugh was enough to catch his sister's attention, leading her to peer down at his messages. Ooh, Keita again. Fuyumi smirked. Quickly stuffing his phone back in his pocket, Shoto played dumb. Maybe. You know Mom wants to meet her soon, right? The elder sister nudged her brother, only for him to nudge right back. Buzz off. While Shoto put up his usual cold front, he reflected on everything that transpired back there, as well as what was to come. His sister was going to be at Parents' Day with a camcorder of all things. It would be utterly mortifying, but it was a small price to pay to make his mother happy. Chapter 72, Family Ties. It's almost time. This afternoon was going to be a very fun one for Mina Ishido, she knew that for a fact. Not only was she presented with an opportunity to snag a ticket to a theme park thanks to her class rep, but also, the time had come for the biggest undertaking she had ever been met with. Granting names to a bunch of new recruits. Granted, she had to do a bunch of research the night before for this, which was less than stellar, but well worth it for the cavalcade of names she had collected from the internet. Steve was the only English name she knew off the bat, so she had to acquaint herself with not just more names, but how to both spell and say them, too. Normally I hate learning English, but in this case, worth. She thought proudly to herself. Observing the pink girl dancing in place in her excitement, the rest of her friends smiled, amused by her antics. Man, Ishido, you're totally stoked for this, aren't ya? Jiro piped up. Well, she'd better be. Denki said with a smirk. She's lucky she just narrowly avoided getting in trouble with the bots after the stunt she pulled, after all. That made the acid user abruptly stop and puff out her cheeks at the blonde. Hey, I'm just saying, maybe it's time ya gave that a rest. Indeed. Tenya concurred, furrowing his brow at Mina. Your continued hiding in bulkhead is getting rather old, Ishido. I have since discussed it with Optimus a while ago, and we've agreed, do it a third time and you will be reprimanded accordingly. Slumping forward with a loud groan, Mina lamented her class rep's stickler mentality. You're seriously no fun, Iida. Say that to me when you pull that trick again and you're in the middle of a war zone. The girl rolled her golden eyes. PSH, please, I was in a war zone almost a week ago, remember? With adult supervision and military reinforcement, Tenya argued. Every time we've been allowed into battle proper between the Autobots and Decepticons, it has always been with adults, be they heroes or otherwise. The other times were all accidental. He's got a point, Mina. Ochako nodded worriedly. Maybe we should stay out of BotCon conflict for the time being, at least until we're more experienced. Behind the 1A students, Tetsu let out an audible grunt, placing his hands behind his head. Whatever. Just how long are we gonna have to wait for these mooks to show up? Setsuna and Abara stared deadpan at their classmate. Wow, you're impatient, said the lizard tail splitter user. Itsuka sighed and shook her head. Relax, I'm sure that it won't be for much longer. And longer it shall not be. Everyone shot their heads up when they heard May call out to them from the base's entrance, and with her strolled out Optimus Prime, Red Alert, and Signal Flare. They have arrived, the inventor sang, which caught the other Autobots' attention as well, prompting them to all gather up with their human companions. Ooh, Signal Flare. Mina rushed up, waving the new Autobot down. Hiya, how are ya doing? Peering down to her, Signal Flare gave a chuckle seeing her enthusiasm. Haha, well if it isn't the acid spitter, he knelt down to greet her, quickly taking notice of her friends as well. Ah, and these must be the other menaces. That brought everyone to a screeching halt. Menaces, Ochako exclaimed. Good sir. Tenya raised a stiff arm in retribution. I can assure you right now that we are not menaces, delinquents, or anything of the sort. We are upstanding students of UA high school who intend on becoming heroes, after all. It would be an insult to our curriculum if we were anything otherwise. Hey, you say that, but you kids have earned a bit of a reputation on the dark side for what you did to that trooper. At Signal Flare's explanation, the 1A students were left completely stunned, aside from Mina who wore a sheepish smile and scratched her cheek awkwardly. Let's see, we've got the Electrocutioner, the Shredster, the Blowpipe and the Float Terror. The 4 teens were absolutely dumbstruck, though only half of them were actually horrified by what they were called. No, Ochako cried, putting her hands over her mouth. Not Float Terror. I don't wanna be called that. What did I do to deserve this? I am incensed and offended at such a name for myself. Tenya exclaimed, thrusting his arms in the air and waving his hands dramatically. I mean, blowpipe. It makes me sound like I'm being compared to exhaust fumes. Jiro and Denki, on the other hand, were far more into their darkside nicknames. I dunno, Shredster, sounds kinda badass. The spiky redhead grinned. And I'm so digging, Electrocutioner. Denki gave a thumbs up. Of course, shame I can't use it since it sounds like a villain name, but damn if it ain't creative. Red Alert gave a sarcastic hum. Yes, very creative. In any event, though, I think it's time we get this undertaking started. Optimus nodded. Agreed. The Autobot leader's optics shifted down to the pink girl below. Mina, are you ready? Sure boss bot. Mina saluted before giving Signal Flare the go-ahead. Bring them in, Signal Flare. Let's see how they look. Hehe, alright then. Signal Flare stepped in front of the base's entrance and announced. Ahem, in light of our defection from the Decepticons, we former Viacons have taken a new title amongst ourselves. We debated for many hours over what to call ourselves, but after much deliberation, we've decided to dub ourselves something that is both new and yet familiar, bringing ourselves into a new era while also remembering where we came from. Raising his hand, the new Autobot presented his crew as they came rolling through the doorway. Everyone, allow me to present to you, the Omnikins. Rolling out of the base came several sleek cars, all of them completely identical in every way but paint. Just as Mina had asked, all of the Viacons, or rather, Omnikins, had donned individual color schemes to tell them apart better. From left to right there was a green one with two thick, black stripes down the hood. A blue one with neon yellow streaks across the side. A mustard yellow one with gray pinstriping. A white one with red flames across the doors and hood. An orange one with teal waves all over. A black one with cyan bolts going from front to back on the doors and hood. A magenta one with several emerald green lines across the hood, roof and trunk. And finally, a brown one that had tan details that resembled mud stains on the hood and near the tires. The students were left in awe at all of the diverse color schemes, breaking out into a chorus of oohs and ahs. They were all incredibly vibrant, even the darker or duller ones, thanks to all of the unique patterns that they had chosen. However, there was still one left, as Signal Flare so apathetically introduced. Oh yeah, and Steve. Oh, sure. Everyone perked their heads up to see the eponymous Steve come skulking around the corner and out of the base, still rocking his black, purple and silver color scheme with slashed Decepticon symbol on his chest. He was followed out by Bulkhead, who was keeping a sharp optic on him. Label ME the afterthought. I know what your game is, Signal Flare. Try making me look bad just because I didn't wanna be seen in all of these dumb colors. Hey, you're the one who doesn't wanna be a team player. Signal Flare shrugged. You could always change your mind. Hey, no thanks. Steve jerked a thumb to himself. I'll proudly still be labeled as a Viacon, thank you very much. Despite his nasty attitude, Mina simply beamed up at him. Okay, if that's what you want. Honestly, Steve the Viacon has a nice ring to it, anyway. Whirling around, Steve pointed at the girl angrily. And you, but he didn't get the chance to say any more as he felt a certain pair of optics boring into him. He could tell that it was Bulkhead without even glancing back, and he let out a frustrated sigh. Just know that I still don't like the name, Steve. Too bad. You're stuck with it, Mina cheerily replied, much to Steve's chagrin. The others hurriedly approached the rest of the Omnikins, though, still marveling at the eclectic color choices they'd all made. Wow, you guys look so cool. Tetsu grinned. Where the heck did you come up with these patterns? We just studied up on Earth vehicles to see what was popular, said the green and black Omnikin. And after our research we all agreed on something. Humans enjoy bright, vibrant colors and interesting patterns. And after discovering this primitive mindset, we decided that was the way to go. The yellow and gray Omnikin followed up. Hey, yeah, that is kinda common. Setsuna admitted, only to realize what was just said. Hold on, what do you mean by primitive minds? In one fell swoop, the Omnikins were left taken aback, all of them stumbling over their words to try and correct their mistake. What he meant to say was, interesting. The white and red one stammered. Why yeah, and cool, as you humans would say. As if to emphasize his point, he pulled away from the group and performed a spin out in the base's front yard, his tires skidding across the ground while kicking up dust. And lemme tell ya, my flames are so cool that they're red hot. A contradictory statement, to be sure, Abara deadpanned as she waved the dust away from her face. But something ya just can't deny. Denki added, earning a small grin and eye roll from the Vine user. The blonde's Autobot partner, though, was less enthused as he stepped away from the cloud of dust. Whatever, could we please just pick these guys' names before my paint gets smudged? Sideswipe groaned at his brother's tidy tendencies. Dude, ya need to get a grip. Okay, let's settle down. Strongarm urged before smiling down to the acid user in her list. Mina, now's your time to take the floor. Please, share the names you've picked out. Thank you, Strongarm. Mina held her head up proudly, strolling forth toward the Omnikins with her list held in front of her face. Ahem, now, I'll just preface this by saying I'm not the best when it comes to research and stuff like that. Before last night, I only knew one English name, she pointed up to Steve. And obviously, that one's been taken, whether he likes it or not. That earned her an irritated hum from the Viacon, but she kept going nevertheless. But after extensive investigation, I've come up with several names for you Omnikins today. The 8 former Decepticons all cheered on that note. That said, I'm gonna be dishing them out depending on the type of vibe your vehicle mode colors give me, so everyone line up and once your name's been given, feel free to transform. Itsuka and the others all sat down with their partners, the redhead resting on Flare-Up's knee. This oughta be interesting, she chuckled. Yeah, wonder what Mina cooked up for the lot of them. Flare wondered herself. Starting from the left, Mina approached the green Omnikin with the 2 black stripes, humming to herself thoughtfully as she scanned her eyes over it. Glancing between the car and her list, one name actually stuck out to her, though she had no idea why. I think, you come off as a Kevin to me. Why's that? Asked the bot. Dunno. Something about your paint job just screams, Kevin. Mina scratched her head, and I for the life of me have no idea why. Well, alright then. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. The newly named Omnikin transformed and saluted to her. Kevin it is. Mina gave him a thumbs up. Great. Congratulations, Kevin. Now, moving on, sidestepping to the magenta car with the thin, emerald green stripes going over top, the pink-haired girl immediately smirked. Ooh, going for a shade of pink, trying to appeal to me and get a nice name out of it. The Omnikin wasn't sure what to make of that. Well, that wasn't my intention, no. Good, because my favorite color is, ironically, purple. That made the Omnikins all chuckle awkwardly, all while Steve facepalmed in the background. Now, as for your name, I'm thinking Charlie. A fun name for a fun color scheme. Transforming into robot mode, Charlie nodded down to her. Sounds like a deal. From there, Mina went on a naming spree. She immediately knew that the orange and teal Omnikin was destined to be named Dave, since it sounded like the word wave, which was the pattern he had. The mustard yellow and gray one was dubbed Hank, since he had a somewhat duller color scheme. And the blue Omnikin with neon yellow streaks was named Gary. Just because I think it sounds neat. She had reasoned. Dave, Hank and Gary stood side by side and all affirmed her thoughts. Works for us. They echoed with a salute. Now, what about you? Mina pondered as she approached the black car with the cyan bolts. You need a name that stands out as much as your colors. After scanning her entire list, she finally came across one that seemed all too fitting. Oh, I know. How about Tyler? Tyler, huh? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. I guess that does sound pretty cool, actually. Tyler said with a shrug. Mina clapped her hands in anticipation. Almost done. This has gone super well. She approached the final 2, going for the brown and tan one first. Ooh, a very dirty color layout. Did ya go for the muddy look intentionally? Yeah. The Omnikin affirmed. Thought it was a neat aesthetic. I see. Going over her list once again, Mina noticed a name that stuck out within seconds. Ooh, now this one's good. How about Dan? Ya know, then you'd be Dirty Dan. Assuming robot mode, Dan let out a laugh and rubbed his neck sheepishly. Haha, now that's a fun nickname. I like it. Before anyone could say anything else, the final Omnikin, the white one with red flames on his hood and doors, let out a loud whoop. Woo, yes, now it's my turn. He started revving back and forth on his wheels in eager anticipation, taking his brethren and the others by surprise. I am so pumped for this, you wouldn't believe. Come on, let me hear it. I want the best one you got, Acid Spitter. Attempting to calm him down, Mina waved her hands nervously. Whoa, don't fly off the handle there, bud. Gimme a sec. Her golden eyes scanned the paper she held intently, hoping that her new impatient friend could hold out a little longer. Ooh, aha. What did you find? The bot asked in excitement. Your new name, my friend, Mina thrust a finger at him. Is Kyle. Not waiting a moment more, Kyle transformed into robot mode, pumping his fists into the air. Haha, yes, I love it. He began punching the air in a form of celebration, much to the other's chagrin. Kyle, 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 I'm so gonna rock this name. Signal Flare scratched his helm, noting just how exuberant Kyle was being. Not one day off the dark side and they're already expressing themselves as individuals. This was definitely a good idea. He cleared out his vocal processor and spoke up to his crew. Alright, men, line up. That managed to shake Kyle out of his celebration and get him to form up with the others, standing at attention. Well, now that you all have names, there's one last thing that you all have to do, isn't there? The Omnikins all looked to one another, nodded, and then bowed their heads toward their small, pink christener. Thank you, Acid Spitter. They said in unison. Boys, Signal Flare barked. Real names. Oh, sorry. Kevin apologized before all of them bowed their heads again. We mean Mina. The pink girl wore a shaky smile and gave an awkward chuckle, rubbing the back of her head sheepishly. Oh, it's okay, gonna have to get you guys used to the whole Earth names thing, I guess. Nevertheless, she clapped her hands and spun back around to her friends. So, now that I've sorted their names out, let's try and settle this whole ticket situation, shall we? All of the Autobots were left curious by her words. Tickets. Erizar flew down from her nest and landed near the group, tilting her head. What's this about tickets? Tenya cleared his throat and explained. Ah, yes, well, I received these in the mail from Native just a day ago. He fished the tickets out of his pocket to show the bots. They're for an amusement park, and I received 4 of them. I initially asked Midoriya and Todoroki to accompany me, but the only free day we have is Sunday, and they're both busy. And we can't go either since we've got stuff to do that day, too. Itsuka explained, gesturing between herself and Ochako. I see your problem there. Springer noted, folding his arms over his chest with a smirk. Well, here's how you should choose, kid, ya gotta have your pals here earn 'em in some way. The suggestion made everyone do a double take as Springer explained. When it comes down to it, choosing at random just ain't fair. It leaves the others disappointed because either they got an unlucky draw or you express personal preference for someone. But, if ya make 'em earn it, then they've got nothing to be disappointed by. Denki's face scrunched at his reasoning. And why's that? 'Cause then, you'll be too focused on bettering yourself for the next time an opportunity like this pops up. Springer winked. So you gotta give it your all now, or be left in the dust. Itsuka scratched her cheek with a wary smile. That, kinda makes sense, I think. So, what, we just have a competition to see who gets the tickets. Jiro put on a big, toothy grin at the prospect. Works for me. Yeah, same here. Tetsu raised a metal fist. Let's go one-on-one. But before things could get too heated, Tenya brought everything to a screeching halt. Now hold on just a moment. Remember, I am the one with the tickets, so what I say goes in this situation, and to be fair to Springer, I admire his forward thinking in this situation. The compliment made the triple changer puff his chest out proudly. However, I believe there is a way to make it even more interesting. Pocketing one ticket for himself, Tenya plucked one of the 3 remaining tickets out of his other hand, presenting the group with the remaining 2. Only these 2 tickets will be on the line for you. A collective, hooah, echoed throughout before Mina asked, but why? There's 6 of us who want to go and you're only going to be picking 2. Precisely. The last one I will be reserving for one of our classmates in 1A should they wish to go. Tenya explained. I believe it is only fair to invite someone outside of this group to avoid complete favoritism. But, should they not and any of you fail here, you will be given another chance before Sunday to earn the last ticket. That made everyone brighten up a bit. Ooh, adding some extra stakes. Ochako clapped her hands together. I like it. So, how are we gonna decide this whole thing? I do not know. Tenya admitted. On that, I'm rather stuck. Oh. All of a sudden, Highwire jumped up and raised his hands, getting everyone's attention. I've got an idea. Setsuna, remember how you guys mentioned that whole sports thing you were in? The lizard tail splitter user blinked at her partner's point. The sports festival, yeah. But I'm not sure what Oh. All at once, her confusion gave way to realization as a sharp-toothed grin took its place upon her features. Ooh ho ho, I think I'm getting what you're trying to say, Highwire. Let's have our own mini-tournament. The reaction was pretty much immediate as both Jiro and Tetsu echoed their sentiments. Hell yeah. That sounds awesome. Huh, now that'd be a bodacious idea, dudes. Grinder agreed. Seeing you guys duke it out for those tickets would be totally righteous. However, Sir Shock felt the need to remind them of something. One problem, though, doesn't a tournament usually consist of one-on-one brackets? In that regard, we would need 8 competitors for a traditional tournament. She raised her hand to Obara and the others. But counting all of you up, there are only 6. Huh, well, that's a good point. Tetsu and Jiro both grumbled thoughtfully, searching for a solution to this problem. That's when, of all bots, it was Strongarm who had an idea. She snapped her fingers as it came to her, bringing everyone's focus to her. Hey, whoever said it had to be a traditional tournament? We only have one afternoon to decide this, don't we? So instead, why don't we pit you all against one another in 2 three-way battles? Using her hand, she ushered the teens into 2 groups. The ladies and guys will all face off, and whoever comes out on top in whatever competition you decide will be the winner. For his part, Sideswipe was impressed. Huh, that honestly sounds like a pretty fair fight. You actually had a pretty decent idea for once, Strongarm. Nice. The cadet grimaced to the red Autobot over her shoulder. Watch what you say, punk. I'll take the compliment, but be careful how you word it next time. No promises. Sideswipe cheekily put his hands behind his head, shifting his optics away as Strongarm growled at him. Ahem, unwarranted comments aside, I believe this would be the best course of action as well. Optimus agreed, kneeling down to the teens. The best things in life are often earned, so to that end, are you all up to the task? He received a collective, yes, from the kids, which was all he needed to get this underway. Then I say let's get this tournament underway. Tenya, name the competition. Before the spectacled student could name anything, though, Mina raised her hand. Ooh, can we use our quirks? Is that fair game? Well, I don't see why not, so long as you are careful with them. Tenya asserted. No serious harm to anyone in this competition, understand? Yes sir, class rep. Denki and the others saluted. Now, what are we gonna do here? Continuing his thought process, Tenya scanned his eyes across the entire group, thinking back to the sports festival and what would be most appropriate for their competition. Let's see, a relay race wouldn't be practical, we don't have time to set up an obstacle course. And unfortunately, neither is the horse race since you need 4 people on a team for that. So, that leaves a good old-fashioned slugfest. Jiro hardened his fists and slammed them together, creating sparks in the process. Tetsu did the same move, only by clapping his metal hands together. Haha, yes, I was hoping we'd get to do this. Kaminari. Better hope your metal is as good as mine. The electrification user wore a nervous smile at that. I dunno, isn't there some other kind of sports festival event that we could do? Oh, or maybe even a regular sports day thing that normal schools have. Denki was practically scrambling for a reconsideration, knowing that he didn't do so well in the festival tournament last time. I mean, I'm not fighting Shiozaki here, but going up against both Tetsu and Kirishima. I'm done for. Nah, that'd be boring. Mina dismissed, much to Denki's chagrin. Besides, what better way to decide who gets the tickets than through Mortal Kombat? There was a brief pause as something strange happened. Obara let out a small gasp and perked her head up, as if Mina's words had just woken her up. Did you say, Mortal Kombat? Yeah, when you put it like that, it sounds awesome. Ochako punched a fist into the palm of her hand. Mortal Kombat it is, then. By that point, Obara's attitude had completely changed, which became immediately apparent to her classmates. Rather than her angelic glow, she seemed surrounded in a red aura of determination and fire, her eyes lit up and brow furrowed. I accept. Before the Almighty here today, I shall deliver all of my foes to Providence. Obara. Itsuka asked. Are you okay? Sir Shock seemed equally concerned. Yes, my lady, you seem much more impassioned than normal. Obara responded by clenching a fist, her lips turning up into a resolute smile. I have never felt better. Now come, combatants. Let us get this competition underway. Is anyone else noticing how much emphasis she's putting on those hard C's? Sunstreaker asked as the teams took their places, with Ochako and Itsuka staying on the sidelines. Yes, it's a bit odd. Eraser admitted while preening her wings. But I'm certain it's nothing. Perhaps Abara simply just wants to win those tickets that badly. Tenya stood between the two groups of three, with the boys and girls all standing in AY formation across from one another. Alright, now that everyone's taken their places, we can begin the matches. Remember, no serious injuries through the use of your quirks, otherwise, you will be disqualified. Ready, raising his arm up, Tenya prepared himself to give the word. Denki seemed extremely nervous in the face of his hard-hitting opponents while Abara was intensely focused, which put Mina and Setsuna off a little. Go. Without wasting a second, both Tetsu and Eijiro charged one another, almost as if they were resuming their fistfight from the sports festival. I'm gonna get ya this time, Kirishima. The metal man proclaimed. Nah, I'm going 2 for 2, dude. Eijiro denied. All while Denki watched from afar. How the heck am I even supposed to get in the middle of that? He thought to himself. By contrast, Abara had immediately let her hair down and her vines practically shot through the ground and toward her opponents, driving both of them off in opposite directions. Mina let out a shout and jumped away from a bunch of vines that went to lash at her, sending out a wave of acid that burned through them, only for the vegetation to grow back only in seconds. Setsuna, meanwhile, was forced to separate her body parts as multiple vines whipped up around her limbs, much to her shock. Whoa, slow down, girl, she implored. I didn't even get the chance to enact my plan yet. There is no time for thinking when in combat. Abara chastised. You must not hesitate on your moves. Just fight. Mina and Setsuna scrambled away, but found that to be quite difficult with all of the vines following them. Wah. Geez, what has gotten into her? The former exclaimed while spraying more acid on the vines. Even so, they didn't let up. I dunno. Setsuna kept floating around the thorns that her friend was sending out, popping more of her parts off until she was just a floating head. I don't think I've ever seen her like this before. Abara was undeterred by their screams of fear, though, only pursuing them with even more ferocity. No one should underestimate me, Setsuna. You saw me at the sports festival, after all. If Iida hadn't outsped me, I'm certain I would have been victorious. On that note, even more vines came bursting out of the ground, leaving Mina and Setsuna stunned and afraid as they took the form of giant, thorny fists. All the while, the vines also wrapped around Abara herself, containing her within a suit that left only her eyes exposed. Now, are you prepared to test your might against me, in Mortal Kombat? The sight of Mina hugging Setsuna's head and both girls crying was all the answer she needed. Meanwhile, in a less frightful situation back in Musudafu, Izuku and Inko were busy setting the table in their apartment, with Bumblebee giving a helping hand in his holoform. There were more than just 3 places, however, as Izuku had successfully pitched the idea of making up for the whole debacle from the other day with a proper dinner between the Midoriya and Jiro families. Of course, this time, it would be held at the Midoriya household, as the Jiros were still cleaning up after the mech incident. There was a bit of frantic pace to it all, though, as this was all very last minute. Izuku, I appreciate the sentiment of wanting to make up for what happened, but could you maybe give us more than a single afternoon to get ready next time? Inko implored, not exactly impressed with how hastily this was put together. Sorry, Mom. Izuku bowed his head. It's just, there's something that we have to talk to you guys about, and it can't wait, he explained sheepishly. That made Inko's eyes widen. Something important. Her mind began racing with possibilities, though chief among them was the idea that her baby boy and Kyoka had finally expressed their feelings for one another and they wanted to break the news to their parents. My little Izuku might actually have a girlfriend. The excitement was clear on her face as her lips curled up into a bright, happy smile. Oh, okay then. If it's really that important, then I supposed I can let this slide. Thanks, Mom. Izuku went up and pecked his mother on the cheek affectionately in gratitude. I promise, you won't regret setting this up last minute. Besides, I'm sure you'd like to speak with the Jiros over less stressful circumstances. Inko nodded and beamed widely at her son's point. Yes, that sounds lovely. Though I have been speaking over the phone with Mika for a couple days. Izuku blinked in surprise. Wait, really? Oh, yes, we've had quite a few in-depth conversations. Inko touched her hand to her cheek. I don't think I've had this much girl talk in a while. Not since. Her cheerful demeanor hit a slight bump when a certain memory cropped up. Not since Mitsuki and I stopped talking a while back. Just by looking at her, Izuku could see a hint of sadness in his mother's eyes. She and Mitsuki Bakugo had been very close friends for a long time, ever since he and Katsuki had become friends in kindergarten. But then, after his and Bakugo's falling out, the duo didn't interact as much, no doubt because of their sons often being at odds. You should call Aunt Mitsuki at some point, Izuku suggested. That seemed to jar Inko out of her slump. Oh, I couldn't, she's probably dealing with a lot since, well, you know how Katsuki is. Yeah, but you'd be surprised how much Kachan's, well, maybe not calmed down, but his flames have been tempered. That managed to get a small chuckle out of the woman, which made Izuku smile. I mean, heck, you could even introduce Mrs. Jiro to her if you want. Maybe have a ladies' day at some point. The more her son spoke, the more confidence seemed to be bubbling up inside of Inko, to the point where she puffed up and said, you know what? That might not be a bad idea. I'll remember that, honey. Now, let's finish setting things up. Izuku nodded and returned to the table, while Inko spun toward the kitchen. How's the salad coming along, Bree? I mean Bumblebee. In the kitchen, Bumblebee's holoform, donned in an apron, was chopping away at several veggies so fast that Inko could barely see his hand. Heck, she couldn't even make out what the vegetables looked like. Only when he stopped did she see that they all seemed very well cut, and with a swipe of his hand, Bumblebee tossed them into the nearest bowl, using 2 wooden spoons to toss the salad with aplomb. He stopped for a second and gave Inko a thumbs up, letting her know the salad was coming along well. Excellent. Inko returned the gesture as she went straight to the oven. Now, time to finish up the katsudon. Bumblebee was just about to fetch some ranch dressing from the fridge, but paused when his hand reached the door. Outside, his sensors indicated that a certain compatriot of his was approaching, and no doubt he had the Jiros with him. Sure enough, just outside the apartment, Jazz had pulled into the parking lot, quickly finding the yellow bug and parking next to him. And here we are. The Autobot lieutenant peeked into his rear view, eyeing Kyoka and Mika in the backseat. Y'all have arrived at your destination. Thank you for riding chauffeur Autobot. Kyoka couldn't help but cringe at the bad French accent her partner tried to pull off. Hey, thanks, Jazz. She chuckled awkwardly as his doors popped open, allowing them to disembark. Stepping out of the front passenger seat, Kyotoku stretched, his muscles popping in several places before giving a satisfied, "Ah, that's the stuff." He spotted B and gave him a pat on the roof. "Heya, B, how's it going?" He didn't get a response, though, not even a radio acknowledgement. B. He glanced back to Jazz in concern. He okay? Ah, he's probably focused on something inside. Jazz waved off. We'll see him when we get in. On that note, the quartet started trekking up the steps to the Midoriya's apartment, all while Mika eyed her daughter with a sly grin. So, sweetie, indulge your mother. What exactly is it that you wanted to bring us all together so last minute for? The younger purple-haired girl decidedly shifted her eyes away. Mom, I told you, you'll have to wait until we're all ready for dinner before we can explain. There it is again. Mika pointed, taking Kyoka off guard. Using the word, we, a lot lately, aren't you, dear? Don't think I haven't noticed. Just admit it. Her smile widened considerably as she uttered a set of words that left Kyoka with goosebumps. You two are an item. In front of them, Kyotoku nearly choked on his own spit, and Kyoka's jacks started freaking out to the point where she needed to physically grab them and yank them down. Mom, I swear to God, we not a thing. Izuku and I are just friends, that's all. Friends, for now, anyway. Mika said knowingly, pushing her glasses up so that the sun reflected off of them. But believe me, dear, give it a little while longer and you won't be singing that, just friends, tune. Sweetheart, please stop trying to convince our daughter to give up her sanctity. Kyotoku implored, only to receive a jack in the arm via his daughter. Would you shut up, old man? People live here. The earphone jack user snapped before whirling around toward her mom. And as for you, mother, I don't want you or dad to embarrass the hell out of me during this dinner. Please, just keep everything normal. That's all I ask. Her words gave Mika pause, but ultimately, she responded with a shrug. Alright. Kyoka blinked, unconvinced. That's it. You're gonna accept my demands. Well, the fact that you demanded your mother to do something is a conversation we're going to have another day, Mika said, which quickly made Kyoka shrink back sheepishly. But, it's quite obvious that you're taking this dinner pretty seriously, so if that's what you want me to do, then I'll do it, too. Taking a deep breath, Kyoka collected herself and bowed her head to her mom. Thanks, Mom, and sorry about snapping like that. It's just, this is important, ya know. Mika smiled and nodded sincerely. I know, dear. Now, would you like to knock on the door, or are we just going to stand out here all night? With widened eyes, Kyoka whirled around again, only now realizing that they had made it to the Midoriya's apartment. Oh, why yeah, sure. Clearing her throat, Kyoka reached out and rang the doorbell, followed by a small rapping on the door itself. Oh, coming, came the familiar voice from the other side, making her grin return. Within moments, Izuku came and opened the door, his gaze meeting the family of musicians. Hey. Hey yourself. Kyoka nudged her chin at him. How's it going, kid? Kyotoku saluted. Mika bowed her head in respect. Thank you so much for inviting us over to your home, Izuku. You're looking well. Same to you, and it's my pleasure. Izuku bowed back before allowing them inside. Please, come in. Dinner should be ready shortly. It didn't take long for the Jiros to take note of the rather compact living conditions, especially given how the dining table took up a pretty good chunk of the floor space. Even the kitchen was tiny, only big enough to hold 2, maybe 3 people, as seen with Inko and Bumblebee both toiling away inside. Oh, you're all here. Inko smiled, tossing her oven mitts aside to greet the family. Mr. Jiro, Mika, Kyoka, it's so nice to see you all here. Welcome to our home. The family all bowed, thanking Inko for the hospitality. Thank you for inviting us, the blonde patriarch reciprocated. And please, feel free to call me Kyotoku if you wish. Humming in affirmation, Inko then set her sights on the other Autobot who would be joining them. And Jazz, good to see you as well. Same here, Mrs. M. Jazz lowered his shades, flashing his vibrant blue eyes to her. And gotta say, you're lookin' fly tonight. Thank you. Inko said bashfully. Though I don't think an apron is the most ideal thing I could be wearing right now. Peering into the kitchen, Kyoka couldn't help but smirk as she saw Bumblebee round the corner holding 2 bowls and also wearing an apron. Well, at least you're not the only one. Haha, nice get up there, B. The mute Autobot deadpanned at her little jab, only to stick his head up proudly and march to the table with the food. Wow, what a diva. From there, things settled down and everyone sat down to enjoy their dinner, making idle conversation as they ate. However, something that astonished the Jiros right off the bat, was just how good Inko's katsudon was. Holy crap, Kyotoku whispered. Inko, oh my goodness, this katsudon is delicious. Mika complimented. I don't think I've ever had any like it. Oh, stop. Inko waved off, still very shy about the whole thing. It's just an old family recipe. Nothing you can't find at a grocery store. Her eyes trailed to the 2 teenagers as they practically scarfed down the dish, a drop of sweat trailing down the woman's forehead at the sight. Although, it does do a heart good to see how many people enjoy it. Briefly pausing their frenzied eating, the duo both shouted, "It's so good, thanks Mom, Inko." Man, humans have some big appetites. Jazz said as he simply observed, while occasionally glancing to Bumblebee, who was actively shoveling the katsudon into his mouth as well. And, maybe some Autobots, too. You aren't gonna eat, Jazz. Kyoka offered. There's enough for everyone. The lieutenant politely abstained. I'm good. My holoform can break the food down, but I don't really get anything from it aside from taste. Kyotoku raised a single finger. Come on, ya gotta take at least one bite of this. It's fantastic. Jazz was still reluctant, but at the same time, it wasn't in his nature to disappoint or bring the mood down any. Well, alright, I'll give it a shot. He grabbed a plate of katsudon and a set of chopsticks, breaking a piece off to bring up into his mouth. The moment he bit down, he was met with an explosion of flavor unlike any Energon-style dish he had ever tasted. He swallowed without much fanfare, but nevertheless was blown away by Trion's beard. Another satisfied customer. Inko puffed up, her confidence being boosted by the fact that even Autobots liked her cooking. As the meal went on, though, the topic shifted to the reason why they were all brought here in the first place. So, Kyoka, Izuku, what exactly is it that you have to tell all of us? Inko asked eagerly. Yes, please, we're all ears. Mika insisted with a smirk toward her daughter, earning her a brief grimace. While I'd be more disappointed by that pun, we do have something important to tell you. Kyoka shifted her eyes toward her green-haired best friend. Right, celery stick. Ahem, yeah, we do. Izuku cleared his throat as both he and Kyoka reached down into their pockets, producing the folded-up handouts they had received in class earlier that day. Their parents' interests were clearly piqued as they were handed the papers. We received these from Mr. Aizawa today. As they read the sheets, the three adults grew wide-eyed. Oh, you're having a parents' day at school? Kyotoku asked. That's actually quite surprising. Mika was also a little perplexed. Yes, I didn't think a hero school would do such a thing. She raised a brow to her daughter. Wouldn't this be, I don't know, a security risk or something? Apparently Mr. Aizawa thinks it's a good experience in staying humble. Kyoka mumbled. He said that we all had to write letters of appreciation for you guys, too, and we'd have to read them out loud to the entire class. That made Kyotoku smile eagerly. Ah, some good old-fashioned teenage embarrassment. I think I'd get along with this Aizawa guy. Please no. Mika's eyes shifted from the paper over to Jazz and Bumblebee, raising a questioning brow. Did you two know about this already? Well, Kyo and Izuku did mention it on the way home, but we thought it'd be best if you heard it from them. Jazz explained, with Bumblebee nodding in solidarity. Well, I don't know if I can make it that day. Kyotoku scratched his head regrettably. I've gotta be in the studio to do some sound mixing for a client. Clicking her tongue, Mika recalled that engagement as well. TCH, yeah, I mean, I could probably attend, provided you don't need my help. Kyotoku sent her a reassuring grin. Oh, sure, I'll be fine. Kyoka needs at least one of us to be there, after all. Hearing this, Kyoka let out a heavy sigh of relief, which didn't go unnoticed by her father. Oh, is that what the reaction's gonna be? Want me and your mother to switch places? No. No, it's fine, sorry. Kyoka bowed, profusely apologizing. Inko couldn't help but giggle a little at the scene before going back to her own son. Well, fortunately, I will also be able to attend. Being a stay-at-home mom definitely has its advantages. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd be able to. Izuku chuckled, anxiously twiddling his thumbs. This earned him a skeptical stare from his mother. What, honey, is there something else you wanted to tell me? You don't have bad news, do you? No. Nothing bad, I promise, the boy asserted. Well, there is something else that I wanted to ask, and I'm a big nervous about what your answer's gonna be. Well, no need to drag it out, honey. Inko encouraged. Let's hear it before all of our dinners get cold. Izuku cleared his throat, getting on with his request. Alright, so, I know we're still grounded until at least next week. He trailed off a little when he received questioning looks from all of the adults now, though Kyoka's encouraging smile and thumbs up kept him going. But, on Sunday, there's a hero exhibition going on at the cultural center. And I was wondering, is there any way we could possibly attend? Kyoka picked up the slack, shooting Izuku a supportive gaze before going back to their parents. Yeah, we know, we're grounded, but this is something that Izuku's been waiting for weeks to go to. It'd suck if he suddenly couldn't go. Hearing Kyoka voice her support for the green-haired kid, her parents were both left quite stunned, yet impressed. Oh my, sweetheart, I have to say, I'm quite surprised. Mika admitted with a soft smile. To think, a year ago in middle school, you hardly interacted with kids your age and now you're sticking up for this one. Kyotoku nodded as well. Even I'll admit, I'm very proud of you, honey, but still, you two are grounded. He and his wife went to Inko for consultation. What do you think, Inko? The question made Inko purse her lips in thought. True, it would be cruel to force her son to miss out on something that he'd been waiting weeks for, but at the same time, there'd have to be some form of authority to enforce. Well, oh. Right at that second, an idea re-entered her mind, the one her son had proposed only a little while ago. You know, I think I might have a solution. Mika, Kyotoku, are you both free on Sunday? We are, why? Mika perked up, with Kyotoku scrunching his nose. Well, Izuku actually pitched an idea to me that I think would be quite wonderful. Inko clapped her hands together as she explained. You see, I have a friend, her name is Mitsuki, and we haven't talked in a while. So, Izuku suggested that we go have a little ladies' day on the town at some point. She tilted her head slightly to her new friend. Would you perhaps like to go if I can set it up? Sure. But what does this have to do with the exhibition? Mika was caught off guard when Inko gestured for her and Kyotoku to come closer, the two leaning their heads across the table. Inko then leaned forward herself, raising a hand over her mouth as she whispered her plan to them. As she explained it, the married couple both slowly began smiling again, and Mika was quick to approve. Ooh, I like that plan. Let's do that. Kyotoku couldn't agree more. Oh yeah, couldn't have worked it out better. The man faced the two teenagers, their eyes full of hope. Well kids, congrats. You'll get to go to the exhibition. Yes. Izuku pumped his fists into the air. All right. Kyoka cheered. Victory is with me, and just like that, Kyotoku's proclamation cut the celebration short, both teens finding their faces frozen in smiling horror. They shakily turned their heads back to the blonde man, who kept up his sly smile. Pretty sure I don't gotta repeat myself on that one. You both heard me. Kyoka's eyes started twitching, her smile beginning to grow shaky. Just humor me, old man. What did you say? Mika and Inko both grew quite serious at that moment. You heard him, young lady, the Jiro matriarch asserted. If you wish to go to the exhibition, then your father is going to be acting as chaperone. You wanted a compromise. This is what we feel is fair. Ah, don't worry, it'll be fun. Kyotoku stood up and brought his arms over his daughter and Izuku's shoulders, smiling cheerily even as the teens' smiles diminished, Kyoka more so. It's been a while since I've gone to somewhere fun, and this hero exhibition sounds kinda interesting. Izuku, I'm guessing you've got a thing for heroism, eh? Yeah, Izuku replied sheepishly. I'm pretty much the biggest All Might fan you'll ever find, after all. The older man chuckled and pat Izuku on the back. Hee, yeah, that's no surprise. Still, I'm betting this'll be a hell of a good time. We'll meet up Sunday morning, how's 9 o'clock sound? Pretty good, actually. The exhibit doesn't open until 10, so we'd make good time. Hearing that, Kyoka's jaw dropped. Green bean, you're actually okay with this. All Izuku could offer was a shrug. Well, I mean, is there any better deal? No, I guess not. Kyoka slumped forward, feeling utterly defeated even in victory. Good God, there's nothing that could be more awkward. From across the table, Jazz piped up. Well, glad all that was sorted out. I'd be happy to give ya a ride if ya need it on Sunday. He peered across the table and pointed at a small dish of butter. Now, could someone please pass the lard cube? Almost everyone stared at him incredulously at that. Never mind, I stand corrected. Kyoka muttered. Across the city of Musudafu, meanwhile, a certain Soro parts user was having her own familial discussion, though it wasn't going nearly as smoothly. She was currently trying to convince her brother to do an impossible task. One that was so vile, so terrifying, and so insurmountable, that very few people could do it. And he was no exception. For the last time, sis, it's a no. Kentaro Kiryu vehemently refused as he marched away from his sister. I am not doing it. Oh come on, Aniki. Keita implored as she followed him through the living room, the duo marching past their little sister as she gazed up at them. It's literally only gonna be for half a day. You mean to tell me you're that much of a chicken? Keita, I had to motivate myself to go to the sports festival. And that was after I convinced myself that there was no way I'd run into Aizawa since I knew he'd probably be busy. Kentaro's expression twisted into one of fear. And guess what? I ran into him anyway. Rolling her eyes, Keita let out a groan. Okay, Yeah, I get it, Aizawa can be a bit jerkish. A bit, but you gotta realize that I'm in a bind here. Do you have any idea of how likely the chances are that mom and dad will just drop everything from that dig to come to Parents' Day? Keita put her hand into a circle shape and shouted, 0. Kentaro didn't get the chance to retort as their little sister, Kiki, beat them to the punch. Sissy, did you try to call them first? The little girl wondered, walking up to her older siblings with her stuffed Dimetrodon in hand. Maybe if you ask nicely, Mama or Papa might find the time to come. There was a short pause before Keita smiled down to her sister, a short sigh passing her lips as she knelt down to her. Kiki, sis, you know how important Mama and Papa's job is, right? Kiki nodded. So we can't exactly expect them to just pause it and come home. But aren't you important, too, sissy? Kiki's eyes shimmered as she gazed up at her older sister. I'm sure they'd do the same for Aniki if he were still in school. Kentaro glanced away with a shrug. Well, I dunno about that, but, oof. He got an elbow in the gut from Keita for his remark. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they would, Kiki. Keita, you should really try calling them. Who knows? Maybe they've hit a lull. With a frustrated sigh, Keita relented and began making her way to the family computer. Alright, fine. Let's give him a call, but if they say you gotta go for them, you officially can't get out of it. I can't argue with that, darn it. In contrast with her brother, Kiki was overjoyed. Hooray! We're calling Mama and Papa. Despite the weird situation, Keita couldn't help but smile as her 8-year-old sister practically danced in front of the computer, eagerly waiting for her sister to turn it on. Haha, okay, let me get the call going, kid. After a few clicks, Keita got the video phone pulled up and dialed up her parents, the two elder Kiryu children waiting patiently as Kiki bounced up and down in Keita's lap. Eventually, the call was picked up and a woman with long, black hair appeared on screen. She was in her early 40s, though no one would be able to tell that considering her youthful appearance. She was also mixed race, with both Japanese and Caucasian features, and she wore a name tag on her pocketed brown shirt that clearly said, Krista. At first, though, Keita noticed her mother seemed a bit on edge, wearing a very brief yet serious expression. But the moment she registered that it was her children on screen, Krista Kiryu brightened up immensely. Mama. Kiki raised her arms. Hi, Mom. Keita and Kentaro echoed. Oh, my babies. Krista placed a hand over her chest, almost as if she were trying to calm down. Oh, it's just you. Keita raised a brow at the wording. Just us. Were you expecting a different call? Her eyes widening, Krista quickly reassured her daughter. Oh, it's nothing, honey. Just trying to keep myself mentally prepared for a call from our site operator. She put on a smile, though once again, Keita could tell that there was something wrong. It was genuine, yes, but just from the way her mother's features seemed strained, it was very telling. But let's not worry about that now. I honestly wasn't expecting a call from you three today. What's up? Hey, Mom, you will not believe the news that Katie has to tell you. Kentaro nudged Keita in the shoulder, urging her on much to her annoyance. Come on, sis, time to rip the band-aid off. I'm getting to it, ice head. Keita rolled her eyes and focused back on her mother. Mom, well, it's about school. Hearing this, Krista grew concerned. Oh, sweetie, is everything going okay? But then, she did a 180 and furrowed her brow. Is that Bakugo child egging you on again? I will call his parents if this gets out of hand. No, it's not about Bakugo. Keita vehemently said, letting out a frustrated sigh. Though I kinda wish it was, since that'd be an easier problem to deal with. Krista grew from worried to confused. I don't believe I follow. Taking a deep breath, Keita finally broke the news. Well, Mom, you see, next Monday at UA, there's gonna be a Parents' Day. Hearing that, Krista quickly put two and two together, realizing the problem. Oh, sweetheart, I know, you're busy. Keita rubbed her neck. I just thought, maybe taking a shot in the dark and seeing if you could come would be worth it. But really, I get it, you guys are busy with the dig, so. No, Keita, that's not it at all. Krista denied, much to her daughter's surprise. I'd be back in Japan in a heartbeat to see you in UA and attend Parents' Day. Your father would say the exact same thing, too, I know it, but... Furrowing her brows, Keita saw her mother's features grow more worried again, and the mention of her father piqued her curiosity. Mom, is there something wrong? And where is Dad, anyway? There was a few seconds pause, Krista visibly hesitating, which only made the pit forming in Keita's stomach grow. Kentaro and Kiki were also growing more worried by the second. Mama. Kiki hugged her stuffed toy close. What's the matter? Oh, sweetie, everything is fine, for right now, at least. Krista swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. Your papa is at the dig site right now with the rest of the crew. They're working hard to keep what we found from being discovered by our overseers. Keita's eyes widened, knowing exactly what that must have meant. The new Tyrannosaur, right. Her mind began racing, trying to figure out why they were keeping their higher-ups from seeing it. Mom, did something happen to it? Oh God, don't tell me the skeleton's unsalvageable. After another moment's pause, Krista gave her children a serious look. Kids, what I'm about to show you is something that can never be seen by anyone else. She took out her phone and brought up her messenger. Keita, I'm sending you the picture. I don't want to risk this getting out to anyone, understood? Sure. Keita muttered, noting the sudden tone shift as she took out her phone. Sure enough, within seconds, she got a message from her mother's phone, containing a photograph. And once she opened it up, her jaw hit the floor. What? Peering at the phone themselves, Kentaro and Kiki were beholden to the image as well, having similar reactions. Holy crap, the Hero Ice Age exclaimed. Whoa, Kiki marveled. What is it? We don't know. Crystal continued with a grimace. But if something like this were to get out to the public, it'd rock the very foundations of our world. Something so futuristic yet ancient is sure to be the main talking point, and I'm certain that people would be thrown into mass hysteria. Her eyes narrowed at her kids. You three need to stay tight-lipped about this. Not a peep to anyone, understood? Well, obviously, but, Mom, what are you gonna do? Keita asked. A sigh escaped Crystal's lips, a few tears escaping her eyes. I really don't know. My sweethearts, I wish I had the answers for you, but right now, the most we can do is hope that this all turns out for the best. We will be back home, though. I promise. As much as Keita wanted to believe that promise, the pit in her stomach and the image on her phone told her otherwise. She set her eyes back down to the picture, making sure she wasn't just seeing things. But sure enough, after blinking many times, it was still the same as it was when she first opened it. What are you? There, practically embedded in the Earth's surface, was a giant, humanoid robot. It was mostly metallic gray in coloration, mainly in the arms, lower legs and the wing-like structures that stuck out on its back. Highlights of gold peeked out all throughout the bot, though, namely in the form of spikes along the sides of its legs, the backs of its hands and knuckles, the tips of its feet, and below its upper arms near the elbows, as well as some larger spikes sticking out from its wrists, that kind of resembled claws. Also, its rounded shoulders seemed to have built-in rocket pods, indicating that this robot was likely built for war. Its entire chest was gold as well, with its pelvic region being mainly red. Its upper legs and hands were black, as was the very blocky helmet on its head. The sides jutted out and went up slightly like a pair of angular horns, though it lacked any facial features, instead having a black mouth plate and a dark visor that lacked any sort of color. But the main detail that caught Keita's eye was the red, face-like insignia beneath a clear, smoky black panel in the center of the robot's chest. Have I seen that somewhere before? And it's the end of Season 2 Part 36 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.